Hello fellow coffee botherers, in this video I'm going to be doing a tutorial on using the much anticipated Ninja Luxe Cafe coffee machine. Specifically, this is a how-to guide on the new European version of the Ninja Luxe Premier 601, because I know a lot of people are starting to receive this in the UK and other parts of Europe, and quite a lot of things have changed versus the US 110 volt version that was released first. For anyone who doesn't want the tutorial but just wants to know how this version is different, I'll quickly explain what's changed first. The new version has a hot water button and a dedicated hot water spout. There's also an Americano option, which I wouldn't use for Americano, and I'll explain why later. There's an additional basket, the single shot basket, and of course that means there's a single shot option on the menu. The drink sizes are slightly different, the advanced settings menu is slightly different, and the way we adjust the espresso ratio has changed. It's now done with the strength button. Also, with the strength button, we can now change the strength or brew ratio for the filter style coffee, which changes the grinding time. With that said, let's get on with the tutorial. So you've got your new Ninja Luxe Cafe coffee machine, now what? Firstly, just make sure you know what everything is, and I'm not going to bore you with that info here, just open the glossy inspiration guide that comes with it, pages 4 and 5, everything is explained here, and also on page 4 of the instruction manual, and the glossy quick start guide. By the way, Ninja, if you're watching, do we really need all these different booklets? I think the inspiration guide is brilliant, but it contains most of the stuff that these two contain. Couldn't you condense it all into one booklet, maybe? See pages 1 to 5 of the Quick Start Guide for getting everything cleaned, installed and ready to go. That's all very self-explanatory, so I won't waste your time going over that. So you're all ready to go, installed the water filter, water in the water tank, you've done the flush, put beans in the bean hopper, excellent. But do you have the right beans? That's another question. This is a traditional basket espresso machine, so it'll work best with freshly roasted coffee beans, as Ninja state in the glossy inspiration guide, the manual and the Quick Start Guide. Just be aware that if you ignore this and buy normal beans that only have a best before date and no roasted on date, this machine probably isn't going to work quite as expected. If you want to do that, I'd just go into the advanced settings menu and turn off the grind size adjustment. When choosing your coffee beans, I'd recommend sticking to around the medium dark side of things where roast level is concerned. If you're considering light to medium roast, some of these are going to be a real challenge for this machine, in particular the grinder. This might be a good time to have a word from our sponsor, me. My coffee from seaworks.co.uk is roasted daily. You'll probably find that the roasted on date on the bag is the same date as a dispatch date. So you might actually want to let it rest for a few days after receiving it before cracking it open. All good things to those who wait. Our 3 best sellers, Chocolate Brownie Blend, Classic Italian and Chocolate Fondant Blend, are all going to be great options for this. I'm using Chocolate Fondant Blend today, which is one of my favourites. My number 1 favourite is Chocolate Brownie. Shh, don't tell Fondant. But I think a lot of people using the Ninja will really enjoy the slightly punchier chocolate fondant. If you want to try my coffee beans, use the discount code YT25 for 25% off your first order at seaworks.co.uk. Now back to the Ninja. Just before we start making coffee, there's one other thing I think it would be helpful for you to know, and that's how to use the additional settings menu. Press and hold the drink size button for about 3 seconds. You'll see HD01 pop up. Use the dial to toggle through the settings, press the dial to select the setting, use the dial to choose the desired setting, and then press the dial again to confirm. Easy. HD01 is to turn the beeps on or off, so by default it'll be on. If you want them off, just turn the dial to off and press the dial to confirm. HD02 Eco Mode on or off. If you turn this on, it'll keep the heater off all the time unless you're brewing, so I'm guessing it'll be slightly more energy efficient, although I've not tested that yet, and thermoblock heaters are really energy efficient anyway. HD03 turns the barista assistance on or off. HD04 resets the barista assist. If you think your machine's got its knickers in a twist, you might want to do that. HD05 is factory reset. HD06 is brew temperature, low, medium, high. If you want to find out more about brew temperature, see my recent video which is all about espresso brew temperatures, link in description. HD07 is milk temperature, and HD08 is to set the water hardness. Okay, so we know our way around the machine now, let's make coffee. Espresso. Pick your basket, single or double, depending on whether you're brewing a single shot or a double shot, or the Luxe basket if you pull in a quad shot. Line up the tabs like this and slap it in. Preheating flush. I'd recommend a preheating flush as part of your workflow for espresso to get everything heated up. This isn't mandatory, but starting off with everything preheated, including the brew path, the group, the portafilter and the cup is very good practice. Just lock the portafilter into the group, select espresso, press a button to start and put your cup on the drip tray so everything is getting heated up, including the portafilter and your cup. You don't have to do this before every shot if you're making more than one, but I definitely recommend it for your first shot when the machine is cold. Lock the dosing funnel onto the portafilter, insert the portafilter into the grinding cradle. You'll see espresso is selected by default if you have the single or double basket in the portafilter. You'll also see a recommended grind size, a preset is 12, so just start there. Press start grind. Grab the tamper, tamp, remove the dosing funnel, lock the portafilter into the group and press start brew. Congratulations, you've made your first espresso with the Ninja Luxe. Hopefully it isn't terrible. See, that was far too fast. Hopefully it'll tell us to go finer with the grind. Yes. It's telling us to go to 5. Oh, from here it is because I can't see the... It's telling us to go to 9. Well, I think it's wrong. Vile. It's not actually all that bad. I think a lot of people will taste the first shot and think, that's all right. I can taste that isn't right. It's under extracted, but.
What are you tasting? It's like, why is it under extracted? Is it like the mouthfeel? Is it the taste?
To be honest, mainly it's just dull. It isn't really sour, which is mainly to do with the bean that we're using, but it's just quite dull. But even that, to be fair, is probably better than a lot of bean scoop machines, even without being dialed in. It's not terrible, it's just not quite right. It hasn't got the flavour I would expect it to have. Repeat this process and make 2 or 3 more espressos without changing anything. Just let the machine figure things out. Make sure you taste each espresso so you can check if the taste is improving. I'm going to purge a bit, yeah. Few seconds should be all right. I'd do more than a few seconds if I was going from filter to espresso or vice versa. But big changes, yeah. But a few 2 or 3 seconds is all right for a few grind settings within the espresso range. Not much better. There you go. More like it. Grind size 4 it wants us to go to now. Just tastes a tiny, like marginally, a little bit better in terms of like being a bit more balanced. Got a tiny bit more flavour to it. I can actually taste a little bit of chocolate in that. Definitely looks better. Slower. Interestingly, it's asking us to go up to 5, but I'm not sure I will. Quite often find that when it does that, it quite often, if you leave it where it is, it'll go back down again. It'll decide that.
That was right.
Yeah, and that looked right. That's definitely the best one so far. I'm happy with that. So personally, I would ignore that and leave it where it is. And I think if you made a couple more, it would go back to 4 again. It does sometimes, especially when you're first getting it, and it will sometimes go off maybe by 1 grind size. Ratio is changed using the strength button. 1 dot is 1:4, meaning about 70 grams of espresso from 18 grams of coffee, if you're using the double shot basket. 2 dots is 1:2.5, which is the default setting. 3 dots is 1:2. 1:2 is the most popular ratio these days, but I think a lot of people will actually find that 1:2.5 produces really good results, which is good because it seems the machine wants to do that. The 110 volt version was very consistent with the ratio, which is set in the additional settings menu. This one quite often gives me a 1:2.5 when I ask for a 1:2, and I find that changing the ratio and then changing it back again usually fixes it. I'm not sure if this is just an issue with this particular unit. Please let me know in the comments if yours does the same. When it comes to brew temperature, if you think something just doesn't quite taste right and you want to see if adjusting the temperature will fix it, as I've mentioned, it's HD06 in the advanced settings menu and the default is medium. The espresso is now dialed in for this bean, and as espresso is a base for most of the coffee shop favourites, cappuccino, flat white, latte and so on, obviously it's important. Americano. I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't use the Americano button to make Americano. This is because when you use the Americano setting, it's something slightly different to Americano. Firstly, it's water first, and I'm not bothered about that. Some would say this is long black. In my opinion, you can do it water first or espresso first and call it Americano. Cafes that have both on the menu might do Americano espresso first and long black hot water first, but this doesn't mean you have to call it long black if it's water first. My main issue with the Americano setting, though, is that it's using quite a big ratio, about 1:3.5, and you can't change that. The strength button amends the water volume for Americano, not the espresso ratio. Regardless of the strength option, you'll get about 60 to 65 grams of espresso, and the 1 dot option adds about 140 ml of water, 2 dots adds about 90 ml, and 3 dots adds roughly 60 ml. If you like this, then great. If not, just make your espresso, then press the hot water button, choose your temperature using the dial. 1 dot is about 62 degrees Celsius, 2 dots is about 75, and 3 dots is about 85. Personally, I'd go with the medium temperature setting, but you do you. Press start brew, hot water flows, press it again to stop. Taste it. If it's too strong, add more hot water. That tastes marginally better. Slightly more balanced versus basically a 1:3.5, 1:4 ratio espresso. Cappuccino! Cappuccino. Same again, make an espresso but froth milk and pour it in. So I'll put the milk into the jug, and if you want to make sure you've got enough, just pour it into the cup first, then into the jug. Remembering that you don't need to fill the cup to the top when doing this, as the milk will stretch and you'll have espresso in there too. Put the jug on the sensor, put the wand in the jug and choose the milk type and the froth level. For cappuccino, I'd choose the thick froth option, but you can do what you like. Grind, tamp, press start brew, press start froth, and the milk will start frothing as soon as the espresso is done. Yeah.
It sounded like you were doing a rap.
Grind, tamp, press start brew, press start froth. The milk will start frothing as soon as the espresso's done.
Grind, tamp, press start brew, press start froth. The milk will start throwing as soon as the espresso was done.
Pour the froth into the espresso and there you go, cappuccino. Wipe the wand, push it down and it'll auto purge. If you don't want to empty the drip tray quite as much, just put the jug back in there first. You'll save drip tray space and you'll need to rinse the jug anyway. Tell me to change the grind and I will agree with it and go finer if I can find it. Brew. Start froth. It'll keep it up. I think it was right with that grind size adjustment. It's a little bit better. Always wipe your wand, Harry. And just to say, you might want to include this. Sometimes if you leave it too long, it doesn't auto purge, so that lights up. If you just press that, it will then purge. That's more like an old school cappuccino, but if we wanted more of a speciality microfoam cappuccino, dead easy thing would be to just pour that into another milk jug and then pour that in.
So you'd still leave it on the thickest setting?
Yes, if you want a quite a stiff cappuccino, but you don't want it all on the top like that. You want it a bit more distributed with the coffee. If you literally just the act of pouring it, for example, from that into that, will make it pour better. So you would then be able to get a bit of latte art and not just a massive big white blob that looks like cappuccino from an auto frother, from a one-touch machine.
Like a 90s style. Have a taste.
'90s cappuccino. Flat white, exactly the same again, but choose the thin froth option, the middle one. Then for the best milk texture, I'd recommend transferring the milk from the frothing jug into a latte art jug, then giving it a good swirl to polish it off. I'll put links in the description to a couple of my favourite milk jugs. There'll be affiliate links, so if you buy it after clicking one of these links, you'll be supporting this channel. Thanks! If you want to steam your milk manually, just lift the wand out, choose the first milk froth option, press and hold start froth, let any condensation hit your cloth and then put the wand into your jug. Press and hold. The condensation come onto this. A very weird angle here. This will take some practice. Manual milk steaming isn't as easy as it might look, and this isn't the place to do a manual milk steaming tutorial. But we will do one with the Ninja, and you'll see it when it's done if you subscribe and allow notifications. This also helps the channel grow. Cheers! Cold pressed espresso and iced espresso based drinks. Double shot basket, exactly the same drill but choose cold pressed, and fill your cup with ice because it's not really cold pressed, it's lukewarm pressed. It's cold once it mixes with ice. Just rinsing to cool down a bit because it brews slightly cooler. If you're making an iced flat white or iced latte, for example, it's almost the same drill with the milk too, but you choose cold froth and you can start frothing at the same time as it's brewing. You have to start the brew first or it won't let you start the espresso. Start brew, start milk, and that started. It's now acting like a dual boiler essentially, because you can spin the motor even when it's brewing. Ooh. The cold foam's ace. And if it was the evening and you weren't driving, you could like produce coffee liqueur. Even better. I'm actually a big fan of this. I wouldn't usually bother with iced coffees, but in the very brief heat wave we had here recently, I made quite a few of these, and I think they're just great fun, and all the cool kids seem to love them.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Filter style coffee. For this you'll need the Luxe basket, so just swap out the basket, lock the funnel on and put it in the cradle. It'll prompt you to change to the most coarse grind setting, 24, unless you change it to the strongest strength setting, in which case it'll prompt you to grind at setting 23. Unless that's just a quirk with the one I've got, please let me know in the comments if yours does this. Anyway, adjust to 23 or 24, it shouldn't make a massive difference, just taste it and see what you think. I'd recommend purging some coffee when making a big grind adjustment like this, and also while adjusting back down for espresso. To do this, just press and hold the start grind button for a few seconds and dump that in the food waste or compost. This is to make sure all the grinds in the basket are at roughly the same grind size. Choose your drink size, they're here on this sticker. We'll also display them on the screen in millilitres and fluid ounces. And choose your strength, which adjusts the grinding time for the filter style coffee. Option 1, 1 dot is mild, option 2, 2 dots is medium, and option 3, 3 dots is strong. So in theory, regardless of the drink size, the brew ratio will be the same depending on which strength option you choose. The difference between the classic and rich setting, by the way, is just the brew ratio. The rich setting will be done at a slightly stronger ratio of coffee to water. Then grind. You don't need to tamp for the smaller sizes, so for anything up to and including medium plus, just give it a shake. For large, large plus and XL, give it a tamp. And that's just decent.
So was that comparable to like a French press? Or
Yeah, so for me, if you're into filter, you're into pour over, if you use something like an Oria or V60 or a Kalita or something like that, and you're used to dialing in, you probably think that's harsh and like under extracted and semi over, semi under. But if you like occasionally like a really strong French press or cafetiere coffee, that for me is similar to that. It's not quite filter because obviously it's going through a metal filter basket. But if you just want a big cup of relatively strong, easy to knock back coffee, I think that's great. I think a lot of people will really like that. It's not speciality, but quite satisfying. If you're using a big travel cup or flask, just remove this part of the drip tray. If you're wondering what over ice is, it's more or less the same as filter style, but it brews slightly cooler over a slightly longer time. The coffee hits a cup or glass at about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius cooler, which makes a bit more sense if you're wanting to drink it iced. cold brew. Lux basket, dosing funnel on, insert into the cradle, select cold brew.
Where is it? There it is. And I'm going to do a big one. Yeah. See that? Again, I won't purchase, it was only one. It only just reaches through that, but yeah, I would with the Lux basket. I think that's the thing to do really, is to do it with and then without, especially when you're doing a quad shot.
Same story as with filter coffee when it comes to strength. When it comes to size, you'll get about half the stated volume for cold brew. The idea being that your cup or glass will be full of ice, so you won't need the same volume of coffee to fill it.
Is that right? I'm not a big cold brew fan anyway. I think people who are real cold brew fans probably won't like it.
And there you go, you now know how to use the Ninja Luxe Cafe 601 Premier coffee machine. Hopefully this is a handy video you can keep coming back to as your video instruction manual on mastering the basics of this machine. Let me know in the comments if you found this useful, and also feel free to give me any suggestions on what to add to my Ninja Luxe Cafe series.
Coffee Care comment of the week!
Dreadnought commented on the how to backflush your Gadget Classic Pro and other espresso machines. Boromir's Barista little brother.
Winter is coming. Thank you very much for watching, and if you think coffee is coffee to water, coffee, and you enjoyed this video, we've got tons of content about how to make better coffee at home to take you from beginner to home barista. We've got reviews and how-tos on the most popular machines. If you like the sound of that, click on my face to subscribe. Tatty Bye!